Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with CEO of Transform Your Performance, Regina Huber. These days, she drives bold, value-driven, and heart-centered leadership of self and others. Her electric experience on 5 continents started in Germany and includes leadership positions at the Boston Consulting Group, as well as ownership of businesses in Argentina, Brazil, and the U.S. This experience shaped her into a multicultural transformational leadership coach, international inspirational speaker, and author of Speak Up, Stand Out, and Shine. She also co-authored 3 other books and wrote numerous articles for magazines in the U.S. and Africa, where she has been featured by multiple media outlets. Enjoy this interview.
It's great to meet you, Regina. Thank you for taking a minute out for the show today. I appreciate it.
And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So before we get into your life, I want to know the last 3 years with the pandemic, it really worked on all of us in very different ways. And I'm curious how you survived the COVID pandemic period now that the world's waking up, and how it's changed the way that you live your life and conduct business now.
First of all, I did leave New York in 2020 temporarily because I am all about freedom and I'm not to be locked down. So I did leave New York City at the time, and I restarted a more nomadic period of my life. I did that before occasionally, but I'd just gotten back from Rwanda and Uganda, 2 months total in those East African countries. When it all started, I still celebrated my birthday, and then all my speaking engagements, basically both the domestic ones and abroad, were canceled for 2020. Yeah, it was 2020. So after that, well, I just really focused more also on LinkedIn, as many people did. Of course, also LinkedIn became way more competitive at that time and a little bit, overcrowded. But, I also have had referrals and some online speaking engagements, although I do look forward to doing more in person again.
So let's get to the essence of what you do for a living. If I put you in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day and one of the kids looks up and asks, what do you do for a living? How do you answer them?
I help my clients reach their next career goal and also upgrade their leadership skills so they can better lead self and others.
What was your dream? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I'm a transformational leadership coach and a speaker, inspirational speaker, and also conduct trainings. I really, really want to reach a lot more people. So that's probably, that's what I would like to add on to what I'm doing right now.
Excellent. So let's go to the beginnings of your life to get an idea of how you became who you are today. Tell me where you were born and raised, and what were some of the seeds that were planted in you? Because you obviously give a lot as a transformational coach, and that requires a lot. What were the seeds that were planted in you to make you who you are?
I grew up on a farm in a small village in Bavaria, Germany. As a little girl, I was the shyest girl in town, right? It wasn't even a town, it was a village. There was nobody actually my age at the time. And I remember that one day I locked myself up in our room with my brother to not have to go to kindergarten. This was the degree of shyness I felt at the time. However, at the same time, I had this adventurous spirit inside of me, and it probably runs in my dad's lineage, because a young guy who traveled up the entire Nile from Rwanda to Egypt was in his family in the past, and he did that in a little boat. His name was Franz Heigermoser, and he was later featured in a small documentary. I'm saying small because it wasn't, very well. It never became very well known because they only showed it in at festivals. However, I didn't even know about this guy when I was a kid, right? I found out about him much later. He almost became crocodile food at some point, but he escaped, and then sadly he was actually killed in Egypt before he could return back home. But there was a lot of adventurous spirit in my dad's lineage, and he also would have loved to travel way more but he owned a farm in addition to his job, and so he couldn't travel as much as he wanted. I sort of did this work for him in a way, because when I was 19, I moved to Munich, my first big city, and from there, 26, I moved to Spain and did a lot of work in Portugal. Later, I went to Brazil to help BCG. That was a consulting firm I was working for at the time, to open a new office, as I had already done in Portugal as well. And from there, then, moved back to Germany, did some European projects. From there to Argentina. I lived in Argentina twice, in Brazil twice. I also owned businesses in those two countries. And eventually I moved to New York City to open my current coaching, speaking and training practice in, 2012, 2013. It was, of course, a slow start because I was still traveling back and forth to Brazil after a pretty painful experience with a business partner there. I had to still clean up that mess, but over time, I figured out what I really wanted to do with all this eclectic experience, and this is how Transform Your Performance was born.
That's a wonderful timeline. So in this journey of yours, who's been kind of a hero or a role model for you?
Pippi Longstocking. Are you familiar with Pippi Longstocking?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yes. If you ask me why, it's because she had a free spirit. She did what she wanted to do. She never allowed herself to be pushed into some type of a restraining or limiting system or a box. So she really lived the life she wanted. She was courageous. She was inspirational to others, to her friends, right? And she was strong. She was like no one else. And that's what really inspired me at the time.
So if you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now and spend a little bit of time with them, who would it be?
On the planet right now, that is a really difficult question, because I think it would probably just be my closest current friends. I have never been one who follows a lot of role models, except for Pippi Longstocking maybe, because I believe that we don't really need role models. We are our own role model, in my understanding, because every single path on this earth for every single person is unique, and that's why we came here as unique beings, uniquely equipped with specific talents and strengths that then we develop into something meaningful as we move along in life.
Every day you wake up, there's motivations to get you to do what you want to accomplish. What is the motivator for you? What's the fuel for you to go through your day and be who you are?
I want to help more people empower themselves, because, we hear all this talk about empowerment and how we empower others. I believe that we cannot empower anybody else. We all can only empower ourselves. But what I can do is I can guide people to empower themselves, and therefore uncover precious treasures in their potential that they might not have used, things that they may not even suspect are there. We all have this limitless potential, but how much of it are we really using? Because we've so been educated into being limited. We've been conditioned to only see certain things within our potential because they are aligned with what the system around us wants us to see. I want to awaken the rest of this potential. I don't think we can awaken all of it in one lifetime. That would be very exceptional. But, the more we discover of it, the more powerful we can become, and the more we can do for ourselves and others in terms of the impact we can make and the meaning we can give to our life.
So you've traveled quite a bit geographically on the planet and, in your business life as well. Mm-hmm. Of all of the things that you've done, seen, and accomplished, what are you the proudest of? I
am proud of not ever giving in to corruption. I fought corruption in the past a couple of times. I'm actually right now in a story where I believe there's corruption behind it too. I cannot quite talk about this quite yet, but I have two stories. For example, in Argentina, as a business owner, I did actually win a lawsuit against the city of Buenos Aires, who wanted to fine me because they came to my then business, which was a brick and mortar business, and wanted to fine me because first of all, they come to your door and basically want to bribe you and to give them money. I never gave in to that. I later found out that a lot of the other similar businesses didn't have a license, just as I didn't have one, because they just drag it out too long to give you a license so that you can actually have one by the time you open your business. I had an investor's visa, right? So at the time, what happened is that I had to open a business within a year. I had to employ somebody within a year, and I had to prove that the business was open, which I accomplished despite having to build out a house for it and everything. Now, what they don't give you within that year is a license, and I believe, or I know deep inside, that this is done on purpose so that they can squeeze money out of you, and I did not play along with this. So I went to court. I was lucky to have a judge who didn't want to play along with who wanted to stay in integrity as well and not play along with corruption either. So I won this lawsuit. I'm very proud of this because I think nobody ever had done that before, at least not anybody I know of. And later I also was fighting corruption in Brazil. Very many different layers of it as a business owner, and especially at the end when I wanted to renew my investor's visa there, and it was not renewed because they were intentionally losing documentation. And eventually I couldn't win that time, but I also know that I'm still better off than than if I had paid them off. So I stayed in integrity with myself, which is of great value to me.
So if you had a dream tonight, ran into the 20-year-old version of yourself, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life up to this point, what would you tell that young version?
I would tell the young version that she can do mostly anything that she wants, and that her validation can never depend on others. I think I did a lot of extra work in the past that I was never really properly compensated for because I had a feeling that I always wanted to prove myself, and so I took on way too much work. And this is also why I help my clients see that sometimes they do that too. So that's something that I would definitely tell my younger self. I was very, driven and adventurous. I didn't always have all the information I needed probably at the time. There was no internet, or it was just starting to exist. And my sources of information were a little bit limited. However, I could have told myself that what I can find inside myself was actually enough.
So everyone out there has a perception of you, your family, your friends, clients, colleagues, but you ultimately live your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I am a passionate nomad. I love traveling. I love dancing. I can be very, very passionate. I can also be very withdrawn at times. I think I'm as eclectic as my experience in a way. I have been told that I'm inspirational. I have come to believe that because I have seen how other people's lives have changed. And I'm just really somebody who's a fighter and who never gives up or always is able to stand up and start from scratch again.
That's a pretty magnanimous description. That's wonderful. So, Regina, if anyone out there wants to learn more about you and what you do and hire you, anything revolving around your world, where's the best place for them to go?
My website is transformyourperformance.com as the business name. And my LinkedIn is Regina Huber, first and last name. And so is my YouTube channel at Regina Huber. Lots of inspirational videos there, free resources. I also have a LinkedIn newsletter, which is a career growth strategies newsletter. It contains not just strategies for employees and leaders in organizations, but also entrepreneurs, business owners, artists, whoever can find some nuggets in those articles.
Excellent. Regina, this has been a wonderful story. Thank you for opening up. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much, and I'm saying the same.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.